On this week's episode, I am really looking forward to this because past episodes of Unanswered Questions have focused on an entire film series, a whole franchise. But this episode is about just one movie. One movie that has enough unanswered questions to fill an entire episode. One movie that has enough mystery in it for me to sit here and talk about it for probably close to a half hour. And that one movie is John Carpenter's The Thing. Question number 1. Probably one of the more popular questions about this movie. Whose shadow is that on the wall? Early on in the movie, the infected dog goes into a room with one of the characters and infects them, although we don't quite know who it is. We just see their shadow. Well, there's really only two people that it can be, as there's only two characters who end up transformed that we don't see at all. It has to be either Palmer or Norris. I suppose that you could say it was Blair, but I think that some of Blair's behavior after this point indicate that he's still human. And if you're one of those people that think that Childs is infected, then this could be his turning point as well, except for that blood test that comes out negative later on, and also, hair. The shadow looks to be either Palmer or Norris, but interestingly enough, it's technically neither, since they had a crew member stand in to create a sense of ambiguity. Apparently was originally intended to be Palmer, but his shadow looked too distinctive, so they went with the crew member. But knowing that, I still think with the film as it is, it's more likely Norris. Why? There's a scene later on in which we see Palmer and Childs just hanging out in their room together, smoking a joint, and I would think that if the Palmer thing had a chance to assimilate him here, he probably would have. If you're saying that maybe Childs actually is infected here, he's not, since his blood test's okay later, which will also become important in a later question. Just from this scene alone, which anyone who was already taken over by the Thing would clearly have taken advantage of to increase its numbers, we have to assume that the shadow on the wall belongs to Norris, and at this point, he's the only human infected. Question number 2. Okay, so then if that was Norris, then when was Palmer infected? So there's 3 people in the film who end up being taken over that we don't have the time frame for. Norris, Palmer, and Blair. My thoughts that I've already said are that Norris is infected by the dog, as we see early on. At this point, I think it's just him and the dog, and it stays this way for quite a while, and I believe quite a bit of time goes by before Palmer is taken. Not only do we get the Childs scene, but then later on we see MacReady and Norris go to the site of the crashed ship, and there's a third man with them. You can't really see the guy, but it's confirmed to be Palmer. So if MacReady has taken that flight with 2 people who are taken over, it seems like that they would have taken that opportunity to get him too. Well, what if they were worried about the whole clothing thing? Okay, fine. They still could have taken the opportunity to kill him and to tell the others they lost him in the ice or something. No one was that suspicious yet, so it could have been a move, especially since we know that Palmer can also fly the helicopter. So it's not like they needed MacReady for that. So, no, they didn't do anything because there's no they at that point. It's just Norris. So when does Palmer go down? The most obvious time is the same night that Bennings is taken. We don't really see where everyone is at that point, and everyone is still kind of oblivious to the Thing's MO. We don't see either Palmer or Norris until they come outside to burn Bennings, and there's quite a bit of unaccounted for time before that. So that's the most likely time for Palmer to be taken over. Question number 3. Okay, so that's the roundabout times for Norris and Palmer, but what about Blair? Okay, so this timing's a little trickier because everyone is on guard by the time that they lock him up. It's obvious that Blair is still human when they put him in the shed because it is a lousy strategy for the creature to destroy its method of transport and potential other hosts in the dog. It would have to be pretty soon after he's locked away though, as he would need time to dig the tunnel underneath and create that ship. So I think the most likely time is right before the blackout. Palmer is unaccounted for a while, and it was most likely him that tried to get Fuchs. My guess is that he got Blair right before this. It's possible that he wasn't even trying to get Fuchs, and Fuchs just happened to see him coming back from the shed, so it then had to try to get him. This would mean when the crew came out to look for Fuchs and speak to Blair, he had very recently been turned, hence his anxiousness to come back inside. It wants to build the ship and very much doesn't want to come inside, so the noose and the crazy talk is manipulation. Question number 4. Okay, so if Palmer was infected at this point, why would he bother to draw attention to the Norris head?
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Why would it do this and not allow the head to escape so that it would have further assistance and another form of itself somewhere in the facility? Again, I think it's strategy, because I think if you watch the scene, it seems as if the others are already starting to look towards the head. And yeah, Palmer is the first one to speak and draw attention to it, but I think that it realized that the others were about to notice it and took the chance to avoid suspicion. Calling their attention to the head very likely convinced them that Palmer was not a duplicate, as evidenced by nobody really casting their doubts on him later on, even up until the moment that he finally transforms. Question number 5. Who sabotaged those blood samples? There's a point in the movie where they want to use the blood samples of the entire team to try and figure out who's infected and who's not. After entering the room and opening up the box, they find that those samples have been destroyed. Well, there's 2 mysteries here actually, although the first one is explained in the details of the movie. Considering that only Copper had access to the box and only Gary had the keys, and neither of those were things as evidenced by the blood test later on, the first mystery is how the saboteur got the keys in the first place, and even though it's subtle, the answer is in the film. In the scene where Windows and Bennings are taking the split-face thing into the storage room, Bennings tells Windows to go ask Gary for the keys to lock up.
You got the keys. Get them from Gary. I want to get some stuff out of here.
He then goes off to get him, and it's while he's getting the keys that the creature thaws out and attacks Bennings. And when Windows returns to see the absorption process, you can hear the sounds of keys hitting the floor. So they're there for literally anyone to get them. So who actually got the keys and destroyed the blood? Well, according to my theories here, at this point, Norris is infected, and he's just turned Palmer as well. Either one of them could have found the keys on the floor, but more importantly, when Blair is freaking out in the communications room a while later, Palmer is nowhere to be seen. We don't see him again until they actually find the blood supplies destroyed, so he most likely took advantage of the chaos to do it then. Question number 6. So if this thing is so smart, then why isn't it trying to communicate with the humans instead of killing them? I mean, it's just trying to survive and get away, right? It's a master strategist and capable of building rocket ships out of helicopter parts, so why wouldn't it try to talk to the crew and work out a way home or whatever? I guess there's 2 options here. One is that we don't really know what happened at the Norwegian station. I mean, I guess we do if we're taking the 2011 film into consideration, but I'm not. I'm really not. Who knows if the thing did try to communicate there and was rejected and was forced to violence, so is now unwilling to chance it, figuring that full assimilation is probably the best tactic. Also, this guy is from an alien race capable of interstellar flight, absorbing the minds of intelligence of countless alien races. It's probably looking at these guys as if they were ants. Meaningless. Like if you were suddenly stuck in a big house and you couldn't find your way out, and the only other occupants of the house were a bunch of pugs. Because that's probably the level of difference in intelligence between us and it. We're freaking pugs. And you wouldn't try to discuss exit strategy with pugs. And apparently neither would the thing. Question number 7. What happens to that thing that escapes through the ceiling in the dog pen? Okay, this one's less of a question and more of a misunderstanding, because I've always thought that a piece of the thing escapes in this scene, and apparently the sentiment is shared by quite a few people online who talk about it and cite it escaping. When I did a rewatch to answer this question, it became perfectly clear. There is no second thing in this scene. The sequence of events are as follows. They discover the thing, it grows these giant hand things to smash through the ceiling, and then it pulls itself up to the ceiling. The dog thing, not a separate thing. And it pulls itself up to the ceiling, not through the ceiling. And from there, Childs burns it. Watch the flower thing POV. It's coming down towards Childs. And when the flamethrower goes into action, he's shooting up. When it climbs up, literally everyone is watching it. If a piece of it got away, then they would have been worried about that afterwards and probably gone to try and find it, right? So no, there's only one thing in the pen. Nothing escapes, and after it's dead, by my accounts, the Norris thing is the only one active, although the split-face guy is currently thawing out in the other room. Question number 8. Wasn't Blair taken over by a single cell? And what about the single cell in the vodka bottle at the ending? What about that whole single cell thing? Fuchs says that a single cell may be capable of taking over a host organism, so the guys should make their own meals and such from now on, and people have used this statement to justify all kinds of stuff. It's cited as evidence during the end, with the whole McCready and Childs bottle thing, and it's been suggested as how Blair gets taken since he touches the dog thing with a pencil and then puts the pencil in his mouth. Although, it kind of appears as if the eraser never actually makes contact, and the pencil, grazes the outside of his lips, so it seems like minimal contact. Like if it's this easy, an infected person could just basically touch another person to start taking them over. I've actually seen people say that they think that Bennings had the thing in it because the dog licked his face. So here's my take, and it's that the whole single cell concept isn't even a thing. Fuchs is just wrong. He's being safe, and that's a good thing in this scenario, but it's not necessary as it takes more than a single cell for the creature to take you over. My evidence is this. We know that the thing is highly intelligent, and we also know that it knows how to be strategic in its method. We also know it's not exactly in a rush. It only acts in haste when it's concerned about being found out. Once the dog takes over one person, whether it was Norris or Palmer or whoever you believe it was, it's got all the time in the world. It doesn't need to forcibly take anyone over. If it could absorb you from within with a single cell, all the one human thing would have to do would be to contaminate their water supply or food while no one has suspicions about its true nature. It could just do that and then sit back and wait for the takeover process to be complete with very little confrontation. There'd be no need to take over the dogs in the kennel by force when it could just infect whatever shared water trough they surely used. Yes, it would have taken longer, but it has no need to move quickly at this point. No one's looking for it, and no one suspects that it's assimilating organisms. The fact that it didn't do any of this and instead chose the forcible method basically tells us that it absolutely could not infect someone with a single cell. So in my opinion, just take all those theories and just fold them up very neatly, tuck them in your back pocket, and never speak to me of them again. Question number 9. Something that's been asked a lot, even by Kurt Russell on one of the DVD commentaries, is whether you would even know if you were a thing or not. And to me, this one's pretty easy. There's no way you wouldn't know. They explain it with the dogs. The thing doesn't just take you over from inside and subtly replace you. It violently devours you and then replicates you afterwards. Look at the autopsy scene. The dogs were inside the other one. It was absorbing them completely. The process is always described as violent, so violent that it tears through your clothes. If this happened to you, you would remember that. I guess that there's the possibility that the thing makes itself forget the incident in order to blend in better, but there's no strategic benefit to this really, especially if it's already absorbed your memories and stuff, and it would have to in order to know the language and names and even how to function as a human being. Even if for some reason that it did, it's still not you not knowing if you were a thing, because you're dead, you're gone, completely eaten away and absorbed. In your place is a creature that looks like you and has your brain and stuff, but it's not you at all. So This isn't a question of would you know if you were a thing, but does the thing know if it's a thing? And come on, doesn't it sound silly when I put it that way? If you have someone else's memories and all the tools you need to blend in, why take the extra steps of making yourself forget what you are? Plus, let's face it, there's no evidence in the film to show that the assimilated people think that they're human. Question number 10. So then what about Norris and his heart attack, huh? Why would an alien creature be having a heart attack? It's not faking a heart attack because there's no one around to see him in the beginnings of the attack, so those little spasms of pain aren't for someone else's benefit. Nope. The more likely answer is this. When the thing makes a duplicate of you, the duplicate comes with all of your quirks. If you have a bad heart, the creature replicates that because most likely it doesn't know the difference between a weak heart and a strong one. And in the long run, it's still making a functioning body, so if the equipment isn't actually capable of running it, then it's not going to work. So when you see Norris go down, it's not faking a heart attack. Looking at the scenario playing out around him, outing himself as a thing is actually detrimental to his overall plan. No, what you're seeing is the downside of copying a body that doesn't work, and it's forced into a corner when the doc hits him with the paddles. Think how much different the movie might have played out if Norris's heart didn't fail and both creatures were able to maintain their cover for a little while longer. Perhaps Mac wouldn't have gotten the upper hand in the situation, and the crew would be a lot more divided and easier to gain control of. So Blair was concerned about the creature assimilating the entire world, but the thing was making a ship, possibly to get off world. So ultimately, what did it want? Was Blair just being paranoid? Are we seeing an alien being that just crashed here and is looking for a way to phone home? I'm not touching its finger. I think the answer to that is in the kennel scene. We've already seen the creature assimilate a dog, and we know from Blair's dialogue that it most likely doesn't want to be a dog because a dog doesn't possess the capabilities that it needs, like building or communicating. Its ultimate goal is to utilize the humans, or as Blair says,
"That thing wanted to be us!"
I don't know what's better, him saying that or him saying,
"I'll kill you!"
So why would it try to assimilate the other dogs when it had to know it might attract undue attention and doesn't give it any advantages except having more versions of itself to help spread? I think it's a matter of replicating just being what it does. It's its entire purpose and can't help itself. Its primary function is to replicate and spread. It just happens to use an advanced intelligence to do so. I also don't think the ship was intended to be used to escape Earth, because I don't care how smart this thing is, it's not creating a vessel capable of interstellar travel using helicopter and tractor parts. It was just trying to get into more hospital climates and do what it does best. Question number 12. This might be the most important question of all. But where are Copper's pants? Okay, I've seen this film about 1,000 times, and I've never noticed this. Christy, my wife, has seen this movie like twice, and she spots this and points it out. But in the dog kennel scene, as soon as the alarm goes off, the crew is piling into the hallway. Doc Copper can be seen stumbling into the hall, but he's naked from the waist down. He's kind of far off and his shirt is partially blocking, but I'm pretty sure that we're seeing his stethoscope here. So I'm going to censor it just in case, but I swear you will never see this scene the same way again. But here's the kicker. Here's why this is weird. Because, you know, a guy with no pants on, that's not weird. But a guy with no pants and underwear, yet wearing shoes and socks, that's weird. I don't have an answer for this one. I just wanted to point it out. Question number 13. Okay, here we go. This is the big one. This is the one that you most likely clicked on this video to see. And that's the ending. Is either MacReady or Childs a thing? Are they both human? Is one of them human? Neither of them? This is something that's been debated time and time again, and everyone says there's no clear answer, but I'm gonna break it down to you. There is. The answer's very clear if you just use the information that the movie has already provided for us. What I'm about to say here, I anticipate will be the most controversial thing on this channel since I sang a song about the Cube movies. But both men are absolutely, positively human. There's no chance that either one of them are duplicates. Let me break this down for you. So, MacReady. Most people already think that MacReady is human because it's Kurt freaking Russell, but the movie backs that up. We don't know exactly how much time has passed since he blew up the Blair monster, so there's the possibility that he was duplicated in that time frame, except for the clothes. Several times during the movie, it's apparent that the creature destroys what you're wearing in order to get to you, and it's a major plot point, but our guy here is fully clothed with no apparent damage. It's shown to really have no interest in subterfuge at this point, and doesn't even know that Childs is still around anywhere, so it would have no reason to seek out new clothing, if it were even able to find any intact after the explosion. What would be the odds that after that fire the creature would sift around through all that stuff, happen to find some gear in the right sizes, put it on even though it doesn't need to, all before Childs happened upon it? None of that makes logical sense, so we can rule RJ out. Alright, so what about Childs? He's alone for a bit in the outpost and is last seen stumbling out into the snow, conveniently absent for the final battle. When he arrives back, he says he saw Blair and got lost in the snow, so that could be a lie. And maybe he was duplicated before he wandered off. Well, no. First of all, what strategic sense would it make to take over one of the opposition and then have him act suspicious? If Childs was taken over while standing guard, it would have made more sense to keep him on guard, and when the crew returned, it would be a more even battle. Secondly, when Childs comes upon Mac, he has a damn flamethrower in his hands. Its goal at that point is to just kill everyone and go to sleep in the snow, so why wouldn't it just set him on fire and be done with it? Mac is injured, frozen, and vulnerable, so a thing would most likely attack and replicate just like Blair did to Gary and Knowles. There's zero reason for him to pretend to be human at this point. I've seen people defend this and say that he's trying to make things look low-key for when the rescue team arrives, but look around at the camp. Nothing's looking low-key. Besides, if it really wanted to keep a low profile, it never needed to show itself to MacReady in the first place. Just stay on the other side of the camp, let him freeze to death, and then go to sleep in the snow. We've established that this creature is intelligent and has plans and strategies, and the only thing that breaks that strategy is circumstance, like a heart attack, or I guess its overwhelming need to replicate, like the dogs. Seeing as how he didn't just randomly attack Mac on sight, and he even took the time to show his face here, I can't see any possibility that Childs is a duplicate. And how about his earring? Because I'm not really taking the 2011 version into account, and I don't even think that I need to in order to make my case here, but if we were factoring that film into it, then the creature wouldn't have been able to replicate his ear stud. I want to be clear here when I state that if you want to refute this version of things, you have to come up with a story reason for it. I've seen people make cases about Childs' breath, and them talking about not having a gleam of life in his eyes, but those are minor details that don't make sense to the characters and the story. If you say that those things make Childs a creature, you're admitting that the scene is poorly thought out. There. I said it. So there you have it, 13 questions about one movie. I like those answers. I spent a lot of time watching and rewatching this movie, and I know there's a lot that's ambiguous, and it's intended to be that way, and this movie's open for interpretation. So you don't have to take my methodology as gospel. If you want to have different reasonings, you can. You can have your own answers to these questions. You've just got to reason them out, and I want to see it, so put those reasons in the comments below. I want to hear some debating about this and back it up with stuff that you've seen in the movie and things that you believe. If you're gonna refute me, you've got to back it up, people. That's the rules. Well, that's about it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed these questions. I hope you're enjoying the Unanswered Questions series, because I am. It's definitely pretty cool and something a little bit different to do besides the timelines, although we're still getting timelines, guys. Don't worry. Yeah, leave me comments, questions down below. Put requests for other movies and other series that you want to see in Unanswered Questions. In Unanswered Questions. That's how it should be said. And then also check out my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/movietimelines. These guys right here go there, and they help support this channel, and so can you. You can also support this channel just by watching these videos and sharing it to your friends and making them watch them. Yeah, well, that's about it. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you very, very shortly for another great video. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.